Let's crack on with our first culinary great. Now, Brett Graham, who I briefly said hello to earlier, has a very interesting story. He started cooking when he was 15 in a fish restaurant in Newcastle, the Newcastle in Australia that has approximately 200 more days of sunshine than Newcastle here in the UK, and 4,000 less boob tubes on a Friday night, I think, as well, probably. But he then went off to Bank in Sydney, where he basically was, I guess you were one of the guys who learnt a great deal from Liam Tomlin. He then won the Josephine Pignoli Award, which actually gave him a passport to the UK, which is fantastic. It was a wonderful award named after a lady, I think you probably all know, who sadly died. But that means that he was an up-and-coming man to watch. He won in 2002. He went straight to the square, and in 2002, he won the Young Chef of the Year. In 2005, the Ledbury story began, and we all know what's happened since. It's been an extraordinary story. And he's here today with two other Australians, Billy and Nick, to do his thing and tell us a bit more about the changing face of modern gastronomy along the way. So please welcome Brett Graham, Billy and Nick, everybody. How are you, Brett? That's Nick. Just in case you know, this is Billy, who looks like Matt Damon. Nick doesn't. And no, he didn't tell me that, Matt. No. So Brett, just briefly picking up, you've seen him in other great stuff he does chefing as a pastime. Now, Brett, seriously, after what Simon said, I mean, fascinating, actually, to hear the figures behind what we're talking about today, the changing face of modern gastronomy. Have you seen it at the Ledbury? Do you feel that things have changed? Have you had to adapt to a different marketplace?
Yeah, I think the real thing that I've noticed in the trade especially is, I was thinking back to when I was a kid, and my parents never went out for dinner. Maybe every 6 months we went out for a special occasion, or we went out as a family with friends or whatever, once a month or something. But I think what's changed is people are eating out so much more. So there's a lot of casual restaurants and casual dining, because I think if some people are off, they'll go after work, go and have dinner somewhere, next day go somewhere else for dinner. So I think the volume that they're eating out, I mean, I suppose in the last 15 years I've lived in England, there's a lot more fine dining, serious restaurants as well. So it's not just the casual places that seem to have exploded.
I mean, at the Ledbury, you're number 20 in the world. You've got 2 Michelin stars. Are you taking a less formal approach to the way you're doing things with your customers?
Yeah. When we opened in 2005, we opened probably, when I agreed to do the Ledbury, I was 23 years old, so way too young to have any good decisions to make. I turned up to the Ledbury on my first day. I'd never written a menu. I'd never written a rota. I didn't really know what health and safety meant. I wasn't interested in it either. And
have they got the wrong guy?
Yeah. Well, I thought we had the wrong guy as well.
Amazing.
So it was a really tough start. And what happened is I just followed what I'd seen at Bank, what I'd seen at the Square. And I'm not sure that was the right way. I sort of thought, okay, we're going to be very formal. When people come in, the waiter was like, yes, sir, good evening, madam, how are you? And sort of went like that. And I thought about my experiences eating in restaurants, and I thought that it made me uncomfortable. And I thought I'd go to a restaurant and you would feel a bit, oh shit, here comes a fucking sommelier, and hide in the corner like, all I want is a beer. Yeah. Or that's the only thing I could afford on the wine list. So I sort of started to wonder, why are restaurants places that we go to, we don't have a good time? A good restaurant or a fancy restaurant. I always felt a little bit on edge. I don't know about anyone else, but I felt on edge going to a really nice restaurant. And we opened the Ledbury. The food was too complicated. We didn't pay enough attention to the ingredients. And most importantly, we didn't pay enough attention to our customers. And that's the most important thing, is the customers. And it went on like that for years. We were losing money, making money. Sometimes I'd turn up to work, I think, half a dozen times, and nobody came. So we had 0 booked, and we did 0. It's hard to imagine now, but we got to about 2009, and I sat down all my front of house staff and I said, right, because the front of house is where it's made for me. It's a really, really important part of a dining experience. I think a lot of chefs would like to believe it's like 90% and 10%, but I think it's an even split, even if it goes for some side on the favor of the front of house. Because it's so important that you make people feel welcome. So we thought about, okay, what can we do different to customers? That's where we started the sort of journey of how we changed the way we operate as a restaurant. And it started with how we could just be a bit more welcoming to customers when they walked in, when they left. Instead of just opening the door, walking to the taxi, instead of just letting them go out if they're young chefs who are in the industry, first nice meal they've had all year, they're going to come into the kitchen. We're going to show them all the sections. We're going to give them a little bowl of ice cream in the kitchen. Something as simple as that. But that's where it all started. And then we started to get busier. And we really focused on, if we've got 20 people for lunch today, let's try and show them a great time, really friendly, really nice. And then hopefully, if 20% of them come back next year, we'll maybe do 30 covers. And then we've come up to now where we're fully booked. And it's fully booked day in, day out. And the food's also changed as well. In the early days, it was all about an assiette, well, this was 10 years ago, or an assiette of veal where you had 3 or 4 different cuts of veal to try and show how skillful you were. But actually, the real skill now is in selecting the right ingredients. And the way we changed as a restaurant and as cooks was probably about a year ago, and I've talked about this dish a few times. But what I did, I went to a farm, it was just under a year ago, and I walked out in the field and I spoke to this guy, and I've known him for a while, and I said to him, "Oh, you've got white beetroots growing in your field," and he said to me, "Yeah, tomorrow I'm going to plough them all in." And there must have been 100 meters by 100 meters by 100 meters, full of these beautiful white beetroots where they just picked out little ones in between the rows. And I said to him, "What do you mean you're going to plough them back in?" He said, "Yeah, I'm going to plough them back in because all of the hotels and all of the restaurants only want the little tiny vegetables." And I said to him, "Well, I don't think the baby vegetables taste very nice. There's not as much flavour to them as the sort of more mature and older vegetables." And that can be said for lots of, not just vegetables, but lots of animals that we consume as well. So I said to him, "Okay, I'll buy the whole field of beetroots, pull them up, about 80 kilos a week." And I phoned the guys in the kitchen and said, "Right, we've got this new dish going to go on. We're going to use these white beetroots and we're going to empty this guy's field." And it started out, I think the first week, the pile started to build up a bit too much because we weren't quite quick off the mark. But this is the first one, actually, of his season this year. And the same things. And what it made, I wondered why, what we don't realize what happens is when we're selecting ingredients, why somebody doesn't want to use that. And the reason they don't want to use that is because it's ugly, probably. It's difficult to cook. They're all different sizes. And I think we've got to all stop worrying about if there's a beetroot that big or that small or twice the size. In fact, if anyone's a gardener, they'll realize how difficult it is to grow vegetables that look perfect. And so we started. So this dish, we'll start off with this dish because this is what was the catalyst of everything we do. And how we changed was about, instead of trying to ring up our suppliers and get the best price possible, we ring our suppliers and say, "What is the best you have? What's the best produce you have? What have you got this week, or what have you got coming up, or what can you give us?" And on a Monday morning, so when I rang the restaurant before I came here, a butcher would ring and say, "I have 18 pieces of belted Galloway, I have 25 pieces of Herdwick lamb, and that's it." And that's what we will use on the menu, and we will swap and change depending on what day the delivery comes. And we made lots of decisions about the food. We talked not only about the vegetables, but about the meat. We talked about, we had to have rules about how we were going to start to change the way we cooked and what we bought. So one of the rules, say, for instance, for beef, was that we decided the best breed that we loved the flavour of was belted Galloway. So we'd use belted Galloway. If it wasn't available, we didn't put anything else on the menu. We'd use red ruby from Cornwall for second grade cuts because we thought it had the best marbling, the best flavour. When that wasn't available, don't use anything else. And the same story with the lamb, the Herdwick lamb. So he'll ring in the morning and tell us on a Monday and tell us what our plan is for the whole week. And that's what sort of changed. But back to the beetroot. So the beetroot, we came up with a dish, and we wanted to try and work out ways in which we could make a dish from a couple of different ingredients in the kitchen that we use. And the way we prepare this, the challenge was cooking that just in boiling water. It's not very nice. You slice it, it's mushy, it's wet, it's not very good. Cooking in foil in the oven, same sort of thing, temperature too hot. So what we came up with was we were going to cook it in clay. And because the clay is porous, we cut the top and bottom off so the heat gets into it. And we put some seasoning on the clay. And then we will put the beetroot in there. And then we'll wrap this clay up. It's a bit dry, but we'll wrap the clay up so it completely seals the beetroot. Once that's sealed, we'll put it in the oven. And then we'll cook it till it's certain degrees on the inside. Now, the temperature inside that should be about 85 degrees for a large beetroot, and the heat will keep cooking inside it. And what you end up with is, when it cools down, is we slice it on slice of very thin slices of white beetroot like that. So you're getting zero wastage. It doesn't matter if it's a big one or a small one. They're still all going to be 85 degrees in the middle.
Is there a hint of clay?
Yeah, the clay's not there for flavour,
No?
because the skin protects it. But it's because it's porous,
Yeah.
it pulls the moisture out. So as the steams come off the beetroot, it keeps drawing it away, so it leaves it nice and dry so you can slice it.
Amazing.
And then we thought about what could we garnish it with. We have a dish on the menu, it's a flame-grilled mackerel. And when we cut the ends off the mackerel, we cure them straight away with 1% salt. and then we roll it up in cling film, and we put it in the freezer very quickly. When it firms up, we get a microplane and grate it onto a tray, and then we dehydrate it. So we're going to use that to season the beetroot. So we were taking ingredients that were all first class, all prime ingredients, but trying to make dishes out of things that mainly the number one consideration was delicious, and then it was about trying to use up these prime ingredients. So we will pay the most amount of money for our produce, and even a simple ingredient like a tomato, we would think nothing of paying £2 or £3 for a tomato, the same price you would as a scallop. We don't see any difference between the two products. So this dish, although it works out very well because you get a lot of portions out of it, we're also thinking about how we can create less of an impact on the environment and how we can treat not only the vegetables but the animals better by making good choices.
Are you zero waste at the Ledbury?
We've just started a composting thing where all the stuff off the tables and any trim goes into a composting below the Westway in Notting Hill. And so we've just come out with our first compost now. We're trying to eventually get that so we can package it and give it back to the customers to take home. So in effect, we want to try and get the customers to have dinner and take their rubbish with them as well.
Genius.
So that's what we're working on. I think we produce about, if you look at every single bit of stuff that restaurants, even the clay and all the eggshells, everything that a restaurant produces, I think we're about 100 kilos a day. Wow. And that all gets processed in a bakarashi system, so there's no energy, it just works on microbes. So yeah, okay, so the first dish, I'll plate this first dish. So it's smoked eel we're going to use today for underneath it. You can also use cured mackerel or any of those fish that cure really nicely. And again, we buy the very best mackerel we can afford, or that is available. And it's we take it off the bone. All the bones, we will then put in a vacuum pack bag, all the skin, the head, everything, with some grapeseed oil. And then when we're steaming some meat overnight, we'll put that in the steamer, and we come up with a smoked eel oil. When the smoked oil comes out of it, when we drain it off from the skin, we then put 15% white balsamic vinegar to give it some acidity, and that becomes the dressing. So the whole dish sort of ties in together. Okay, so we take a few slices of smoked eel, pop it on here, and then the little bits of smoked eel that are left on the tail or the bone as well, we make a chantilly out of them. So we whip some cream, we have a little reduction with shallots and sake, and fold that through the whipped cream. Put that on top. And then we get the slices of white beetroot, and we build them up.
Is there any truth in the rumour that the three of you have been cast in the next episode of Hangover 4? That's what I was to make the movie. That's
very good, mate. Very good. That's you, Nick, not me.
That works for me.
We all know who Alan is. Yeah, so we lay up the white beetroot and then dress it with some of the smoked eel oil with the white balsamic in it. And then there's this fabulous company that does English caviar, and they make a salt for us, and they press the caviar, like all caviar has to be pressed in a mold, and what comes off the caviar is the excess oil, and the oil goes into salt, and then it dries, and so it's a caviar salt. We also use that to season vegetables like this. So what we're trying to do is take taking a sort of a vegetable, but giving it a little bit of a meat flavor or a fish flavor in this case. And then we have some little pieces of raw shallot that are cooked in, have been washed off in cold water and then dried. So we put a few slices of that on top. And then some little spoonfuls of this is the dried eel or mackerel. And then put a little bit of sea salt on top of it. Okay, so that would be a typical first little starter at the Ledbury tasting menu. Right. And that's where it sort of started with our thought of thinking about how we do the vegetables. With the meat as well, in the early days I thought it was really cool. Someone would bring me a sample of Wagyu beef, and you would cut it and look at all the marbling, and you'd say, okay, that's amazing, I'm going to use that, or the USDA 350-day age grain-fed beef. And I started looking into it. You can go next dish. So I started looking into it, and I did a bit of research, and I wondered, why are people using this meat that's not English? Why are they importing meat? And actually, I think when you go to one of these farms and have a look how this grain-fed meat is produced, it's exactly the same way as battery chickens. You know, they're standing on concrete, mostly. It's not all like it, but most of it is. They're standing on concrete at the trough waiting for feeding time. And they roll around in their own feces and stand on concrete, and that's what they do. And I think we all have to think about where all those ingredients come from. Of course, it's very easy to cook, and it's a delicious piece of meat to eat. But cooking a piece of Herdwick lamb or a piece of belted Galloway or a native English breed that lives up on the hill in Cumbria its whole life, and it never goes inside, therefore it doesn't need any imported food to feed it, I think it's really important. And I think we should be making more choices like that when it comes to what meat we select. The next dish we're going to cook here...
Can I quickly ask why you're telling the boys about that? Did you know what you said, Simon was saying earlier? You said it's all about the customer.
Yeah.
It came almost, the way you said it, came from you. You decided that, in fact, you needed to change at the Ledbury. Did the customers ever sort of come to you and say, look, we would prefer it, you did this another way? This is just...
No,
I'm trying to get to how you became more informal.
Yeah, I think as a young chef, I think I thought the way to do it was the way I'd seen before. But actually, inside me, there was not that person. And I went to a restaurant a couple of years ago, and I always observe what's going on in the dining room, how people are being treated, what they're doing. And it was really funny, because the first thing that happened, I went to the toilet, and I came back, and I went and sat in my chair. And about 5 seconds later, the manager came over and sort of touched the back of my chair like that, like, oh, I got you. Yeah. And I turned around like, that's a bit strange. Like, I'm a 30-year-old guy, I can pull my own chair in and out, doesn't matter. And same with water. You start pouring your own water at a restaurant, and the waiter comes and grabs your hand. And you're like, it's okay, I've got it, it's fine. So I sort of thought things like that. And there was a couple sitting at a table across from me, and it was their wedding anniversary, and they looked like they hadn't been, it looked like it was a long time since they'd been holding hands. You know, that sort of uncomfortable, like it's our 25th wedding anniversary and I hate you sort of holding hands across the table. And the coffee cup was in between their hands, like that. And the waiter, being a robot, came over and went straight in and picked up the coffee cup. And of course, they dropped hands and they didn't rejoin hands. And that's what made me start to realise, probably, but that's what made me start to realise, actually, it's not about the staff and about their system and about what they do, it's about the customers. Yeah. And you know, my guys are under instructions to do a lot of things, is that, and probably what's unique about how we run the restaurant and how we've had to change and adapt to customers. If there's two guys having lunch together who are two businessmen who are clearly more interested in what each other is saying to each other, not about the little hill where the rare wine was grown with the guy with a little dog who only gets 250 mils per bunch of grapes or something. He doesn't care about that. He's there for a different reason. And my staff are instructed just to leave them alone. Yeah. If they order the beef arrives, they eat it. They don't need to know the big story about where it come from and what it is. But there are other customers that want to know everything. So it's a bespoke experience. Yeah. And also, I think customers, the staff, what I don't think we do enough is, one, I don't think chefs give front of house enough credit. And two, I think that they don't give them enough freedom to do what they want to do. For instance, a couple of years ago, one of the new waiters come down to me and said, oh, there's a chef on table, whatever. I used to work with him in another restaurant. Can I give him a glass of champagne or can I do an extra course? And I said, you've got to do whatever you think is going to make that person's evening special. And so they're allowed to act and respond to customers without passing it by me. Okay. I'm really interrupted. Now you've got some catching up to do because Billy / Matt Damon has flown ahead. He's on fire. Matt Damon's on fire. Literally. Alan from The Hangover is trying his best, but he's still pissed. Okay, so this is in season as well. This is from a little farm in Berkshire. It's a pheasant egg. And as chefs cook eggs, you know, people do these eggs 63 degrees and cook them for a long time. And when you cut them, they're really jammy on the inside. I like a runny egg, not a firm egg on the inside. So we've made a cream from arbois. And we've made the arbois cream with some mushrooms, made a little puree of that on the plate, and a lot of raw arbois. Then whatever seasonal mushrooms are in season at the moment, girolles or mousserons. And then there's a little sheet Nick's putting over that is a jelly made from truffle juice and mushroom juice. And that sits over the egg yolk. And then normally we just warm that on the salamander. Pick that up, put that on top of the egg. Then it's going to be finished around the outside with some celeriac that's been baked in a salt crust. So it's really nicely seasoned. Then it's been sliced thinly, a bit like the fashion of the beetroot. And this dish started was just, I wanted to make a dish that was based on ham and eggs. And once he's put the celeriac around there, he's going to put some dried ham on. So we did some trials and we made some really nice cured ham. But anybody knows when you cut beautiful bits of ham, you've always got little bits of trimming. We slice them really thinly, and then we dry some ham out every service, because if you leave dried ham too long, it gets a little bit of rancidity in the fat. So we do it fresh every service, And we put some truffle dressing on there as well, and some dried ham. So all the little pieces of ham, which are absolutely delicious, are just like little pieces like that, and we're just going to use that to season the egg and the celeriac. And then we've dried out some, we've got some Australian truffles actually, and the peelings and the trimmings, we just blended into a little dressing to go on top of it. And there's some little dried beetroot, dried brioche on top. Nick's putting a little bit of ham on there.
Fantastic.
And then this is sort of the way we'll change through the season. So that dish will change with the mushrooms. The vegetables might also change. When root vegetables come in, it might be slightly different. That's quite new. And then a little bit of truffle over the top, so you can see the yolk there. Okay, lovely. So that would be at the moment on the menu. That would be the third course in before your fish dish. Okay, and then that's a nice way of using a real seasonal ingredient as well. There's another guy we use as well. He's actually a pig farmer, and he's got guinea fowls. And I love seeing stuff like this because it's very rare you find suppliers. If you annoy suppliers long enough, you finally get a good result. But we also use guinea fowl eggs. So the guy goes out, he charges me £1 per egg. They come in a box every Monday. There's normally about 50 of them. And his wife, his little old lady wife, finds them because they're wild guinea fowl, and she writes on a pencil the date and what the eggs are. So we get a range of different dates going. So we just try and use whatever we can, and we're trying our best to try and find any of these little suppliers who can give us something different that we normally wouldn't get on the menu. Okay, so that's the pheasant egg. The next thing I'll talk about a bit before the guys cooking it, we do this a multitude of different ways. Being a Monday, we just started this new dish with, I went to Spain recently actually, and in February, and one of the things I saw them serving was cacocha, the throat of the hake, or the jowl. We call it hake jowl, or cod. And we came back, and I rang my fish supplier, and I said, what can you get? Can you source this hake jowl? And he said, yeah, I think we can get it. We gave him a demonstration on how to do it, and we now put them on the menu. But we swap and change between different fish. And today we're doing turbot, but sometimes it's cod. When, as you know, as chefs, you get a cod, the end piece is always a bit flappy, and the front bit's not quite nice. So you trim it all up, and you get nice portions out of it, and you do a nice roast or steamed piece of cod. And at the moment, we're doing a steamed piece of cod. But what the interesting thing I think we make is we're trying to work out a way that we could make like a brandad, but not a brandad, because not as in the classic sense. So we made a sort of dish that was half mayonnaise and half brandad. And we used the cod trimmings, or the pieces off the front of the cod, as the egg yolk. So we put that into the blender, added some milk, some flavored milk that we put the cod skin into. So we just bring that up to the boil and season it lightly, and then we make it in the blender. So when it starts to blend, you pour the warm cream into and milk into the cod, and a little bit of garlic and a tiny bit of potato, and you blend it, and it becomes like a mayonnaise, and it stays warm, and it tastes fabulous. It's really nice and smooth, and we're going to stuff a little courgette flour with it today. Sometimes we serve it under an artichoke, and it's a really good way of using up that prime ingredient, and you can afford to buy the very, very best. And it's just like, instead of putting a puree of vegetable on there, you're putting a puree of the actual fish itself. So we could use turbot skirts on there, or the hake jowl, like we said. So on the plate over there is some green olive, and then Nick's putting the cod cream on there. You'll see it's like a really rich mayonnaise, and it's like a little rich mayonnaise, nice and warm. The other thing we're serving with this is a cream of anchovy. Is it on?
Am I the guinea pig, or should we let
you can come on, you can be the guinea pig.
I'm going to choose another guinea pig. I'm going to because otherwise it's unfair and I'll get overweight. I've got a terrible BMI anyway. Do you want to try some of this when you two? Like a bit of cod mayonnaise? And your instant reaction is going to be delicious?
Delicious.
Mother and daughter team?
Good chef,
Sous chef. Excellent news. Do you like it? Yeah, amazing. Delicious. That's what we wanted to hear. Yeah, delicious. It gets the seal of approval, Brett.
Get out, that'll do.
Seal of approval from...
Good work.
There you go. There's your spoon back in case you want it.
Okay, so the other thing we've done is we've made you can take a sauce. We use these little frothers, and we've made a sauce. In this case, it's with anchovy, but you can infuse it with rosemary. And we're going to serve today with a little trumpet courgette and a little roast piece of turbot there.
Are your customers, as a matter of interest, are they more or less demanding than you think they were in 2005?
Yeah, I think they're probably less demanding. I think I don't know. I think you sort of, over the years, a restaurant builds up a trust of how you're, of what people expect it to be. And I think people, you come, especially your regular customers, they come to know they're going to come to your restaurant, and that's why they're regulars, because they know they're going to have a good time.
But I'm guessing if you've built on this informality and it's more of a conversation for the customer, they get more from the experience as well as the food, I guess. It's an added
and I suppose
facet of when coming to the library.
Yeah, I want them to feel like they can come twice a week, or come for lunch on business and come for dinner with their wife, or whatever. And what's interesting as well is, I think our customers are different. Having worked in the West End at the Square many years ago, I always thought the customers, and I thought it was just because I was from Australia, but I always thought the customers were quite sort of like, I don't know, a bit dull at times. You got the 6 guys in there with their pinstripe suits on, go in there, see who's the big boy at the table, buy a nice bottle of wine, be a bit rude to the staff maybe, and off they go. And what I thought was, when we started the library, I realised some of these customers are city boys in the West End, but actually when they go home and have a shower and come back for dinner with their wife, they're actually nice guys. Yeah. They've got a different sort of mindset. And we're very lucky being a neighbourhood restaurant that we already had that. So we're able to expand on that sort of thing that the customers were already relaxed when they came to us. So they were in a better frame of mind. But you wouldn't think a couple of miles would make a difference.
But it does.
Yeah. It does. Okay, so there's a dish there. The cod cream's inside the courgette flour, which has been steamed. We cook all our vegetables to order. So asparagus, courgettes, all of that stuff gets cooked to order, except for big, large root vegetables. And there's the anchovy cream. That's on the taste menu as well. Okay, we're going to do a little dessert here. And this dessert is based on some beehives, which is near my house. And I live in Richmond, and there's Richmond Park. There's a lady who's got some beehives, which sounds shit, but it's just behind the car park as you go into Richmond Park. I was trying to tell somewhere it was.
Beehives, why don't you?
Yeah, beehives right behind the car park. And they're called the Tech Woods, and they've got like a little enclosure where some badgers and stuff are, and they put the beehives in there. And I thought it was really nice to try and do a dessert which had everything to do with this honey and the buffalo milk from Jodie Schechter's place in Hampshire.
Yep.
So we took both of those ingredients and we tried to make something really nice with it and simple. And it's on the menu at the moment. Quite often we'll do it as a tasting, a smaller portion of what Nick's about to do here. So the original idea I had was to create a dish, old-fashioned thing like milk and honey, that sort of idea, and try and expand on that. And that's where it started, and this is where it's finished. So we were cooking some sponges one day for this dish, or some cake, and we were trying to work out how can we make a cake of honey, of pollen, of thyme, and we decided we would steam the sponge. And the steamed sponge actually comes out really nice rather than baking it straight in the oven. And so then we've made a whipped cream of honey here, which Nick's piping around the sponge. And then there's all the other bits we're trying to work out, okay, what ice cream we're going to make. So we use a buffalo milk ice cream flavored with eucalyptus honey. And then we've made some meringues, and we've just made a simple meringue, and we've dried the meringues out, but they've got buffalo milk on top of them. And the buffalo milk and the meringue is really nice little combination. And
okay, I'll take this one for the team.
That's what's gonna go on top. So then the other things I thought, okay, what else is English? What else can we use? What are things what else can we use? So the sauce around the outside is made from the bee pollen, and the liquid is being thickened slightly. It's made with mead. So we've got all different types of variations of bits and pieces of honey that go into it. And then it's going to scoop the eucalyptus honey ice cream on top there. And then we're going to surround it all with the little meringues. And that's a little bit of aerated chocolate, which has also got some olive oil on top of it. And it's quite a nice little thing to serve as your first dessert. So before you leave in something a bit heavier or something that's a bit stronger in flavour.
Looks miraculous. We're drawing to the end of our time. Is Nick under pressure now?
He's serious. Look at him.
Can he cope with pressure?
I think he can. Okay, so there's the Richmond Park honey. And we've got one little petit four we're going to show you quickly if Nick's not under too much pressure.
He's got about...
Are you behind?
Can you do it in 2 minutes?
How many have you got made?
That's the question.
How many you got made? Okay. Help him. Okay, so this is...
Hey, don't tell Matt Damon anything like that, okay?
He doesn't do any work anyway. He just wanders around looking at himself in the mirror.
Matt, if you want to... He's got some secret weapon in his trousers. That sounds wrong. On every level.
One of them shows.
Strike that from the record.
Yeah. So we were presented with a product we wanted to use, and it was juniper, fresh Scottish juniper. And so we made creams with it, ice cream, too strong. The flavour wasn't quite right. But we arrived on this. We made a caramel, so like a butterscotch caramel flavoured with the juniper. And then, because it was still too heavy, we couldn't work out what to do with it. When it sets, if you put it in on the whisk, on the KitchenAid or RoboCurve, whatever they are, it whisks up and it aerates the caramel, so the caramel's not too sweet and strong. And then, just for a bit of home ground, we put a bit of Portobello Road gin on the end of it and stuck it in, and then dusted the whole thing with juniper sugar. So if these boys are a bit quicker, they can give you a taste of it in a minute.
Well, that's amazing. I don't quite know what they want you to jump on. Nick wants you to jump on.
That's kitchen
just
talk.
Passing on the message. Don't shoot the messenger. But that looks incredible. I mean, do you want to go out amongst the gang? Shall I just grab one of those?
You can have one.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, this is amazing. Are we drawing to a conclusion here, Brett?
Yeah.
Really? Because that is amazing. Oh, absolutely stupendous. Well, look. Final question before I think. Nick, are you there, Brett? Do you think you're there?
Yep, done.
Okay. I think we've all absolutely loved seeing what you've done here with the boys today, and they are coming to a cinema near you soon. Watch out for that. But no, okay, Billy's going to smash my face in. But I deserve it, Billy, so it's fine. But look, I think what we've got to do is that was absolutely wondrous to see you all in action so efficiently as well. So that's our first demonstration for the day. Please give a huge round of applause to Brett Graham and Billy and Nick.